So I've been sort of a low-key fan of Joseph Kosinski for around 15 years now, ever since Tron Legacy, which I saw in the theater and had a great time with. I wouldn't say it's a great movie per se, the script is less than stellar, but the visuals and the music are top-notch, and it's just a perfect movie for the theater. Then a few years later, Oblivion with Tom Cruise came out, and I liked that one too. Probably more than Tron, at least as far as the actual story and characters go. But once again, what stood out were the visuals. It's just a very slick looking movie, and overall just feels like a high quality production. So at this point I'm probably thinking, you know what? This Kosinski guy isn't half bad. And then he puts out Only the Brave, which many of you probably haven't even heard of. It's not like it's super obscure, but it's not really that well known either. And it deserves to be because it's a genuinely great movie. Like, I wholeheartedly recommend you check it out. But after that, there was a little bit of a gap until Top Gun Maverick, a movie I didn't go see in the theater and almost didn't watch at all, because I'm just not a big fan of the first movie and had no interest in a sequel. However, I did eventually watch it and I loved it. It's a fantastic movie. It's just so much fun. And the behind the scenes stuff I watched later about the making of it, and how they shot all the fighter jet scenes, and how they then replaced most of it except for the actors with CGI, and I never even noticed, that just made me appreciate the movie even more. Like, that's some next level action movie filmmaking right there, with some of the best VFX shots I've ever seen. And I genuinely regret not going to see it in the theater, because it would have 100% been worth it. Because these are the types of movies that are made for the theater experience. I tend to go see smaller movies too, but to be honest, those are just as good at home. They don't really gain that much from the big screen. But movies like Top Gun Maverick absolutely do. And that's why I'm skipping right over the underwhelming Netflix movie Spiderhead. And I'm gonna go straight into F1. Or F1 the movie, as it's called in certain places. And this one's starring Brad Pitt as a grizzled veteran race car driver. He's been bouncing around from one thing to another for decades at this point, when his old buddy calls him up and wants him to come race for his disaster of a F1 team, in hopes of potentially saving it. That's the basic setup for the movie, and while there are some subplots, there's not really that much more to it. And it feels very much like it was made from the same mold as Top Gun Maverick. Because you have this older guy past his prime who comes in to teach the young kids how to do something. And it involves extremely fast, high-tech vehicles. Except it's not fighter jets this time, it's top-of-the-line race cars. And I mean, the movie hits all the beats pretty much perfectly. I don't think anyone's gonna be blown away by the story here, but it works. And it's really the performances and the characters that give it the charm it needs to keep you engaged. And then of course there's also the heart-pounding action too, and it's about as good as it gets. It's once again done masterfully, and I can't wait to see how it was made. Because it's actually sort of mind-boggling that they managed to pull something like this off. I mean, I'm expecting that a lot of it is simply CGI. But there was literally only one brief scene where it was noticeable, and that was a crash in a flashback. I don't know, something about it felt off, and that's probably because the rest of the movie is so convincing that it just stood out in contrast as not quite right. But if you can make a 2.5 hour movie no doubt packed to the brim with VFX shots and convince me it's 100% real except for one brief shot, then I'd say you did a pretty respectable job. And I can't help but to admire the amount of work and craftsmanship that went into making a movie like this. It's remarkable, really, but all of it would have been for nothing if the movie wasn't actually entertaining, which it absolutely is. Now, that's not to say it's a flawless movie. There is some very silly stuff in it, mostly involving some shenanigans that take place during the races, where the drivers and the teams push the rules to the limits, and well, let's just say that some of that stuff definitely wouldn't fly in the real world, and the drivers and the teams would 100% be penalized. But it's a movie, and you gotta cut it some slack. However, some of that stuff does come off as a pretty American way to handle things, in a sport that is very much not American. But honestly, I can easily forgive some silliness and stupidity in a movie like this that really only has one goal. And that is to entertain you for 2.5 hours, and it very much did that, because I had a blast with it. And now I can only hope that it makes a profit, because I need more of these types of movies. I need one every 2 or 3 years. And if this doesn't make money, we might not get them, and that would be a real shame. Thankfully, as of writing, the numbers for the opening weekend do seem pretty decent. But the budget for this movie was ridiculous, so it still has some ways to go before becoming profitable. But F1 is a huge sport internationally, so I'm just kinda hoping people turn up, because at this point I'm personally invested in seeing Kosinski succeed, for my own very selfish reasons. Now, how will it do in the US? Who knows? People in the States don't seem to be that into F1, so it's kind of a tough sell. But they do like themselves a good blockbuster, so maybe it'll work. I really hope it does, but I'm a bit skeptical, not gonna lie. After all, it's an uphill battle, and if this one does end up underperforming, especially in the States, I can't say I'd be too surprised. Disappointed, yes, but not surprised. But again, let's see what happens and hope for the best, because I do genuinely think that this one deserves to succeed. And that's not just me wanting more of these movies. It's me hoping that real filmmakers that put passion and effort into making big movies succeed. Because I'm getting a little bit tired of all the soulless slop that is being released on a yearly basis. But yeah, I'd recommend you go see it if you can. And I'd also recommend you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. But I think that's about it for today, and see you next time.